Greetings and welcome to this edition of the Global Medicine Review. I'm your host, Dr. Kamal Kokai, and I'm joined here by friend and colleague, Dr. Danett C, who is a doctor of Asian medicine, both acupuncture and herbal medicine, the whole ball of wax. And, that's a new degree, relatively speaking, because usually here in New York State, they used to give you a licensed acupuncture degree and herbal certification, but Danett is actually a PhD and all that goes with that. Welcome, Danett.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, as usual, I like to start out by just jumping into a case so people can get an idea of where your healing talents and skills fall in the spectrum of the world's disciplines, right? So why don't you share with us a case and then we'll have some conversation.
Okay, great. So I'm seeing a woman, a 24-year-old woman who had polycystic ovarian syndrome. And she had some battles with weight and some facial hair issues, and she just wanted some balancing overall. And we worked together for a bit, and what I found with her was that some of what we would call the energy of her spleen and some kidney energy was off. And she gave her acupuncture and some herbal medicine that was specifically designed for her. And what she noticed was that, in addition to keeping her exercise regimen, that she didn't have to work so hard to keep the weight off, because she found it like she was really on it in terms of exercising every day, because she noticed that if she missed a day of exercise, that she would gain a lot of weight.
Mm.
But through strengthening her spleen energy as well as her kidneys, and just working with where she was at, she didn't have that battle. But what was really interesting about this case was that she was in a long-term relationship, and she wasn't using birth control because the doctors had told her that when it was time for her to have a baby, that she would have issues. So I guess she had had the diagnosis for maybe like 3 or 4 years or something along those lines. And, one day she comes in and she says, "I'm pregnant." And I'm like, "Oh." And so, at that time, we talk a bit more about her birth control methods, which were none. And she says, "Well, they had told me that I would have trouble getting pregnant. So all these years we didn't use anything." And so it was interesting to see that as her energies got stronger and things got more balanced, that on her body's own, she was able to conceive. So that's a very interesting case to me.
And that's a beautiful example of traditional Chinese medicine at work. And we're going to, since I have a very savvy and intelligent audience, we want to talk a little bit more about spleen qi and kidney qi. But let me just say, with polycystic ovary disease, people tend to be overweight. There tend to be issues with blood sugar. There tend to be issues with too much testosterone and infertility, and along with the testosterone, the facial hair. So in Chinese medicine, this framed in a totally different way, because you're not talking about, well, I'm measuring her hormone levels to see what's happening, right? You're talking about her kidney and her spleen energy. So if you could break those two concepts down a little bit more, I think it would help people to get a better idea of what that actually means.
Sure. So within Asian medicine, we think about 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And when the energies are working as they should, then our health is good. And when the energies aren't, then we notice some issues. The spleen energy, we say, is related to the earth element, and the kidneys to the water. And so, in a sense, The kidneys we can think of as housing what's called the essence or the vital energy of life. And one way that I think of it is, say, for instance, you got an inheritance from your parents. Like, this is what you were born with, your gene. This is why some people, I've had some patients be like, oh, I know someone who can do all these different things and they don't get sick, but I get sick and I want to know why. Everybody's different, but I think sometimes it has to do with just what we inherited from our parents, which sometimes people like to say is DNA, but it goes deeper than that. We also look at the energies that were going on at the time that you were conceived, if you want to get deeper with it. But it's about the essence of your life and vitality. The spleen is earth. We say more so we get through our food, through air, through water. That's how we get to strengthen our earth element. But when we do that in accordance, then we can help to keep our kidney energy stronger. So in a sense, if you have a bank account that you're always withdrawing from, and you don't put anything back, obviously the balance is going to decrease and decrease. But by getting to strengthen your earth and your spleen energy, then that is a way to help to keep your account at a better state where you're getting to put back in, or at least helping your account to not totally withdraw over time.
And I think what's interesting here is that it's not like you measured blood. So what would actually point you to the fact that, oh, her spleen is off, oh, her kidney energy is off? What's the relationship between this particular ailment and those two energetic systems within the body in that sense?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are different indicators in terms of when someone has energy off with their spleen. When we see patients, we're always looking at the tongue. And in the very beginning, when I was first studying, you would think a tongue is a tongue, and then you learn that that is not true, that there's a lot of variations in tongues. So sometimes an indication of teeth marks along the tongue will indicate some deficiency of spleen energy. Through feeling the pulse, you're able to tell if there's some weakness or not. When we feel the pulse, we're actually able to feel all the organ energies of the body. And then there are 28 different pulse qualities, which you could spend your whole life perfecting, learning each different type of pulse quality for each organ energy. And then there's also what happens in terms of what people say when they come in. So it's interesting because when someone is dealing with weight issues, we tend to think about a particular element, a particular factor that we call dampness. Is one of the things that I love about Asian medicine is this understanding that what goes on in our bodies is what can go on in our environment. So the same way we can experience the weather as cold, hot, damp, wind, any of these things, that these things can go on within our body. So the fact that she was having issues with weight indicated dampness, which we think about along the lines of spleen energy. Many times when we think about reproductive issues, we think about the kidney energy because the reproductive energies belong to the kidneys. So whenever someone has, some sort of gynecological issue, that's one flag that goes up, but that's by far not the only diagnosis that's possible. Also, when thinking about PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, there are pockets of fluid that are located along the ovaries. So that fluid, in a sense, we're also thinking about as dampness as well. So those were some things that indicated to me.
Now, what's interesting for me, because here you are in New York, in Brooklyn to be specific, right? And my involvement with Chinese medicine over the last 30 years, basically. And what I've seen, I did a tally. In the New York, Long Island area, there are about 10 medical schools. Mm-hmm. In the last 30 years, there are now at least six schools of Chinese medicine. And I say schools because they offer degree certification that's recognized by the state of New York. I mean, what has happened that a foreign medical system could actually come in to the United States in this area and get such a strong foothold? What
Mm-hmm.
is it about Chinese medicine? Or we can say, what is it that allopathic medicine was not doing or addressing that you would be able to have 6 schools pop up in the course of my career?
Mm.
And I mean, before when I used to be like the only acupuncturist within a block or miles even,
Yeah.
now it's like, it's inundated. In New
Yeah.
York, in fact, there are probably too many acupuncturists in the city. Like, what happened?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you
Well,
went the whole 9 yards to PhD.
yes. Yes. Well, I think, in a sense, the truth is inevitable, right?
Mm.
That people want answers, and people don't necessarily just want their symptoms to be gone. Sometimes they do, that's real. But in terms of like, I have people who've come to me and like, okay, I'm on this medication. I don't want to keep taking it. Well, that's that's not in my scope to tell somebody about taking a medication or not. But being able to give somebody full health, being able to address their mind and their body, and if you will, their spirit, um, allows for people to heal in a whole different way. So as opposed to it just being sort of fragmented, which there are benefits, to being able to have someone see an ear, nose, throat specialist, or any other specialist. There are benefits, but when you're able to have someone sit down and help people not feel like a mess, people come in, I have this, I have that. They list like 5 things, and then you realize, oh, well, at least 3 of those things are related to this particular element. Then it helps to bring things into alignment. So I think people want more. They want more of themselves, and they want to be treated in a way that matches
You mean they
their
don't want to take those
challenge.
drugs that are advertised on TV that might cause liver failure, heart failure? Go speak to your doctor, and see if this thing will kill you or help you. So they might want something different. Well, you know what? Let's talk about you, and I have to cheat a little bit here because I know a little bit about your background. When did you get out of college or high school? Was it?
Um, let's see.
How old were you?
Oh, when I got out of high school, I was 16.
Wow. So, you know what I'm saying? I just want folks to know this is an intelligent person here and stuff. And why Chinese medicine?
Right. Well, it helped me.
Okay.
I had a friend from college. And was having some difficulty sleeping after college,
Right.
and he was suggesting that I go and try acupuncture. And honestly, at that time, I thought it was a little extreme. I I wasn't into like voluntarily going to get needles because of my history as a young one and getting shots and stuff. But I
Right.
was like, you know what, I'm going to be open and try this. And it was just such an amazing experience. What I experienced on the table, and then what I experienced off, because one thing that really impressed me was some things that I didn't realize was off corrected. So there are some things that we just get accustomed to that we think is just how our body works, and this is, the way of life. And then, when you start sleeping better, or you're in a better mood, or your digestion is working better, then you realize that other things are possible. But what really got me was like, why are all these other things shifting if I came in for one particular thing? And that got me thinking about the body and health, and I wanted to be able to help other people to get to experience what I had.
Well, the thing you said is about being open,
Mm.
right? And it's rare now that I have patients come in that haven't had some exposure to acupuncture. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, before it's like, are those needles clean? Do you use the same needles? Or
The work.
right? So the conversation has totally changed,
Mm.
And I think all of us that are into integrative or holistic medicine, we begin to adopt skills and a type of practice that kind of fits who we are.
Mm.
So now you've been in Chinese medicine, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
You've been in this for a while now, right? What do you like to treat? Where do you see that you can have the greatest impact?
Well, my favorite thing to treat is to work preventatively,
Mm.
right? Like in the classics, there's this whole notion of when we treat illness, it's like forging weapons once battle has begun or digging a well when thirsty. That's my favorite. I don't really get to do that often, but
Mm.
I do encourage for patients who come in for other issues that have resolved to come in once a season to get rebalanced. So that's my favorite. But and in addition to that, I love treating women's health. I feel like when that is corrected and balanced, that everything else just improves significantly. So along those lines, I like working with women to help their energies be more balanced. So when they are ready to have a baby, that it's more likely. I also like working with people. For postnatal depletion, which I experienced myself. So, I really like working the full gamut of women's health, but in particular, getting the body ready to be able to conceive, and then helping to build back after.
And that's beautiful. And we need more folks out there doing the kind of work that you're doing. Why don't you just give some contact information? I also know you do some work over at Downstate Medical Center. Hopefully that will be expanding soon. But
Hopefully.
just share with people how they can reach you.
Yes. So my website is backtothemiddle.com, just like it sounds, BACK, the word to, TO, themiddle.com. And also on the site, if you click on blog, I have a women's health blog called the Yoni Box. Yoni Box Blog.
Child, you might get some inquiries there.
Yes, yes,
Right.
yes, which a lot of women are just loving because we're getting to broach topics that have been considered to be a bit taboo. But, when you have a bunch of people with the same questions or dealing with the same issues, and it's quiet, not much happens. But as we get some of the basic information, and I don't want to say basic in a way that would seem like derogatory in any way, but
Right.
like just some things that we all have been struggling with. When we get those answers out, it's just a wonderful thing. So women are really loving that. So it's if you go to backtothemiddle.com and click on blog, you can access that. And my phone number is 718-789-2289.
So we've been listening to Dr. Danett Bean, and again, I want to thank you for joining us, and I'm sure we'll have more conversations in the future.
Yes, thank you. Always a pleasure.
Okay, take care now.
Yeah.
Bye.